Hello, everyone, and welcome to the pre-conference podcast for the second edition of the Mining 4.0 Summit that is going to be held in Toronto, Canada on the 30th and 31st of March. And today we have the pleasure of introducing to you two representatives of Siemens. Please welcome Tiago Amaral and Bernardo Marinho. Hi.
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 Okay, so to start off the podcast, I think it would make sense to get a little introduction into Siemens, which I think is not that needed. Everyone knows what Siemens is, but what is your role in the company? What do you do? What issues you deal with? And just a little sneak peek.
Maybe I can start. So, big welcome from my side. My name is Bernardo Marinho. I'm working in Siemens already since 13 years. I worked in different countries, but always very closely to the mining industry. My background is chemical engineer, so I have worked actually very closely to the process industries during my career. Currently, I'm based in Erlangen, Germany, at the Minerals Vertical Department of Siemens, where I'm basically heading the automation and the digitalization sales group. And we are mainly focused on delivering projects, developing pilots in the fields of automation and digital solutions for mining and cement customers. And I'm really glad to be here today on the podcast and hopefully be able to share a little bit my visions on the topic digital transformation in mining, which is definitely a big topic and just a start from what we will have in the conference in Canada in a few weeks.
Thank you for this introduction, Bernardo. Absolutely. We are excited to hear what you have to say today and at the conference. And Tiago, can I get a few words about your experience as well?
So my name is Tiago Amaral. I am the Enterprise Sales Executive for the Process Automation Software tool. I'm located in Toronto, Canada. I've held multiple positions at Siemens. I've mainly worked for mining, but also work with the different industrial verticals like oil and gas, pulp and paper, pharmaceutical, and so on and so forth. Look forward to discuss what the digital transformation topic in Canada. Participating in many different discussions. So I just want to hear what people will have to say and perhaps share some of the learnings that we've had from even different verticals to perhaps to the industry. So look forward to it.
We are looking forward to this as well. Absolutely. So to start off the podcast, I think I have a question for you regarding the, as Siemens representatives, what could you say about the digital technology trends that are currently happening and their potential to redefine or how they are already redefining safety and performance and operational excellence in mining, which are the crucial points for the mining operator companies? Could Bernardo start the commentary on that?
Absolutely, Olga. Of course, there are many different technology trends now in the mining world for which we can consider as part of a digital transformation process of our industry. But from my point of view, one of the biggest disruptions that we already have and will have really in terms of technology for the operational excellence of mining is definitely the integrated operations management, right? So the so-called pit to port solutions. We know that in our industry, it's quite often the situation where you have long value chains which are operated by the mines. So basically, you have the pit operations located in remote areas. They are connected quite often by different logistic channels. It could be conveyors. It could be also long distance transportation with trains and trucks until you reach really the processing plants, and also the logistic terminals, the shipping terminals, and sometimes even overseas to get the material available in the market, right? And historically, this geographically distributed characteristic of the value chain was never managed in a real-time point of view because of technology limitations. So what I believe is with the new technologies that we have in terms of communication, processing information, as well as the disruptive technologies like the digital twin and AI, for example, we will transform, let's say, the integrated monitoring centers, which are already in place in many locations, from a really intelligent monitoring places, which help to integrate really the complete planning activities and the complete scheduling, and also the operations of the value chain. We as Siemens have already participated in a couple of projects where we provided really digital solutions to create this integration effect between sites, share information between them, and this is already showing very interesting results with good savings for our customers. So if we look in the front, and this is definitely the direction we're going, with more innovation, with more intelligence applied really to this kind of solutions, then we are heading really or unleashing really the power of an optimized value chain operations within mining. Maybe Thiago, you can also add a little bit your perspective from the product department, how Siemens is also developing in this direction.
Yeah, from the product department, also just combining what Bernardo was just mentioning, right? A lot of the mines are, you got to remember the ore axis and having mineralogy is getting depleted over time. So mines are having to spend a lot more energy and a lot more resources to attain the same amount of material that they used to do in the past. And mines are getting a lot more remote. So that sort of technology that Bernardo just mentioned, imagine a person here in Toronto using mixed reality devices to be able to connect to a site in northern Canada, right? How much time does that save? Like even in oil and gas, just a different paradox, but when we take a different oil and gas approach, when we implement digital twin technologies, integrated operation systems, and so on and so forth, we see that a massive reduction of operators putting into harm's way, because now operators from Europe, when they got deployed to Kazakhstan, they already knew what the problems were. So the duration in which the site was down was also shortened too. So the biggest benefit for the site is you improve safety tremendously, because you have operators operating in less time in harm's way. And second, people already know what the problem is even before they get you. So they already defined the plan, they've done all those things, so they can actually bring operations a lot faster to production too.
Fair enough. Those are really great points, and I think that the potential of digital technology to improve, the performance of a mine and performance of a mining operator, as well as the obviously important worker safety. I think it's enormous, the potential. So in terms of the transition to the digital revolution, what do you think is are the biggest challenges and barriers that the companies are facing, the mining companies are facing, to fully enter the digital revolution? And how could they eliminate the barriers?
Some of the barriers that they had to consider, you got to remember, a lot of those sites are old, right? So like, let's just look in the Canadian and even the mining industry in general. It's a very, very archaic industry, right? So the mill, the way they used to mill, and I think Nathan Stublastic, he mentioned a couple of talks, the way they used to mill back in the early 1900s is the same. And I remember vividly, he puts a picture of his presentation where he put an old mill and a new mill, and the only difference is that they just add color to the picture, right? So it's a very old industry. Also, it's a high capital intensive industry. So the biggest barrier that they have is the mine takes a long time to build. So by the time they built the mine, the technology in which they plan to start is already deemed obsolete by the time the mine is operation. And it's very difficult too, because you got to remember, mining, it's a combination of multiple things happen. You have the pit, you have the process, the crushing, and you have the processing facility, and so on and so forth. So there's that integration, sort of like different, let's call it digital twin strategy on a process industry. Is very difficult because the representation in what each element has to do, it's very complex. So now imagine smarting up like a 30-40-year-old mine that has, that doesn't even have communication or Wi-Fi, right? So how are you going to aggregate the data and be able to do it? And how are you going to pull the data up to, let's call, like use a loose term like big data. So how are we going to extract the value of big data, right? So, and the other problem is there's also lack some of a strategy, right? Because if you start aggregating data and collecting data, what's going to happen is you're going to have semi-structured data that you cannot cannot make any actions of it. So the biggest barrier is how do you bring all the sites, the different operations combined, and implement technologies that can be conducive to what your plan is going to be look like, right? You have a lot of mines that don't even have like sensoring level. So how are you going to pull the data? And that's basically one of my takes. Bernard, I know you have a lot more, so.
Yeah, absolutely, Tiago. What I would like to add here, from my perspective, is first of all, I fully agree to the points you have mentioned. We are dealing actually with these kinds of challenges in a daily basis when we are implementing projects with our customers. And I would like to highlight here a little bit some of the measures we are taking, or some kind of best practices that we believe that can help really to overcome this kind of barriers, right? If we talk about the technology side, I think it's quite important that you have alongside really the business vision, right? So what do you want really to achieve with this kind of technology or project that you are implementing, or program even, right? Because you're talking about several projects that would lead actually to that particular goal, right? You have to also evaluate the level of maturity of your technology that is existing in that particular site, right? And from that perspective, in Siemens, we also can offer consulting works in various specific areas to help really to make a diagnosis on that side in terms of technology for measuring data, for collecting the data, for storing this data, processing, and as well as the different applications. So we go deep into the industrial systems which are actually installed. We analyze really compared to the best practices of the market or the requirements, really to fulfill that vision which will be needed. And we can of course evaluate really the roadmap really to overcome really these gaps or digital gaps that you have in your architecture, and align really with the business targets. I think this is definitely one measure that you can do to make really the projects viable from a technical feasibility perspective. But of course, another topic which was also addressed by Tiago is the organizational culture, which is specific from the sites and also the conservative aspect of the mining industry, which leads also to different levels of acceptance to the new technologies which are being implemented by the users. And this is, for example, one topic which definitely prevents really success of a project or for the digital transformation as a whole. So this means that for every project, besides the complete, let's say, technical development of the solution, we quite often develop together with the customer a change management program, where basically we try to minimize really the gaps between the understanding of the users and the technology. So these change management programs, they involve a series of actions to create awareness into the different stakeholders, also provide proper training on the technologies, and most importantly, with the target to include really the key stakeholders into the development of the solution, so that they get familiarized, so that they can also get a sense of ownership into that, and eventually have a better acceptance from the solution. So this is a best practice which definitely can help to make really to overcome really these barriers which are existing in any kind of in a higher or a smaller degree in kind of project for digital solution.
Thank you very much for those inputs. I think they're very valuable to the listeners of the podcast. And I do agree that a huge problem, or a challenge rather, is the compatibility of the new technology with the existing equipment. And it's important to overcome those challenges, which I'm hearing that you're doing quite well. But I've also, something caught my attention in what Bernardo said about the acceptance by the workers, because mining, as you said, is a very conservative industry. So I'm wondering, in the local context of Canada, where we have the summit, if Tiago could elaborate a bit on how you see the issue of workers' acceptance of the new technologies. And Bernardo already mentioned some mitigation strategies, such as the change management programs. Is this something that you use as well in Canada, and what is the state of things in the local market for Canada?
Yes, Bernardo said quite well, especially when I talk about the change management, the different strategy. First, we need to understand, when we go to change management, first we need to understand the difference, how the labor is shifting globally, right? We're moving from a carrot stick sort of motivators, and we can talk about the motivation, what's it called? Forgot the name, STT, Ryan and Desi created, which is basically the workers are shifting to more of like purpose, mastery, and relatedness motivation instead of the carrot and stick. So there is that big shift in how we workers expect to do our job, not first and foremost. So now, how do we relate this to mining and the digital transformation, right? Because whenever you talk about stakeholder engagement strategies, you have to look into the change management, the people, and the reluctancy, and see what's going on. Because you can develop a great strategy, but at the end of the day, the strategy has to fit the people and how the people implement that and bring that to fruition. And that's the number one way to approach the the acceptance and be able to, the technology to be adopted by workers. You can use different sort of change management strategy, like Bernardo mentioned, similar to AdCard, so on and so forth. In Canada, it's going. There's a lot of implementation. There's a lot of actions happening in Canada, and they're trying to deploy quick small wins and so on and so forth. You can see an example. Some companies are doing autonomous mining. You see a lot. Some companies already are deploying battery electric vehicles. You have different groups creating sort of like guidelines to which is a global guideline to help the industry to create frameworks to walk the path through the digital transformation, right? Is it equal to different industries in Canada, like we call automotive, oil and gas, pharmaceutical? No, it isn't. But the industry in Canada is moving towards the right direction, right? You still, it's going to take time because the conservative nature of the industry is still very present. I remember the plenary of CIM a couple years ago, like 4 or 5 years ago. This one of the guys, it was a CEO. He mentioned that the problem of adopting new technology by a CEO, if it doesn't go well, that CEO will see the door quite soon, and everybody else listening to this ended up laughing, because this is the idea of the mining. You know, you're not allowed to make a mistake, but we also understand that innovation, Edison had many failed attempts before he actually got it right. Even when people from the mining industry ask, okay, how come Siemens has been able to pioneer and be for 175 years develop new industrial technology and change and transform itself as a company as it moves along? We have a culture in which our people allowed to experiment and try, and it doesn't have a badge going against yourself. So people have to try more. There are companies that have adopted the attitude of play, so it can actually resolve a business case, hackathon, and so on and so forth. So this could be small and low cost measures that companies can implement to help go through the digital transformation. And like what Bernardo said, you know, there are technology experts in the field, like Siemens and other companies. You know, rely on your vendors. Understand that that not one company is gonna be able to solve it all, right? It's not one solution fits all. We as a company are trying to adopt an accelerator mindset, where we're trying to make our solutions open to where it connects to the entire Siemens framework and eventually to other companies, because we also understand that as we go into big data AI simulation, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to solve everybody else's problem. So our tools have to be enabler so people can use it wherever they see fit. And how do we make it easy? And that's the biggest challenge for the technology provider, is actually making it open and friendly enough so people can reap the benefit and have access and be able to consume the product really well, while helping the vendor walk through the different the digital transformation roadmap.
I think this is really interesting. I would like even to add a point to that, because you definitely explored a lot of really the challenges which we have really to reach really let's say the acceptance of the complete the community and stakeholders onto the new technologies. What I would like to bring here is that we do have successes, right? So this means that the challenges, they are possible to be overcome, and this we have enough evidence for that. So for example, when we started to talk about and promote about digital twin into the mining industry a few years back, it was an unknown term. It was basically a buzzword, where basically it was so distant from the reality of the mining industry that was very difficult to ground it into reality. But if you look now, after a couple of pilot projects developed, we see that it is already somehow not only connected, but it will quite soon be embedded into the reality of the worker. So it means the workers will more and more be assisted by digital technologies, as we all are in our private lives, right? And this revolution is happening, and the transformation has already started in many areas, in many companies. So therefore, I believe we are also in a stage, and as a community, we have definitely to share really these good results, to share the best practices along with the challenges and hurdles, which belongs really to the way forward, so that we as a community become stronger and we can prepare actually to take the next level of developments, to further improve these technologies, and as we move forward more and more to the digital mine, which is, in my opinion, the future of mining.
And if I can just add something there, like Bernardo mentioned about, even where industries are going for, everybody else holds a cell phone, right? Like nowadays, like we have technology that you can point your cell phone to the machine, right? And it can aggregate all the data, the real-time data, the engineering documentations, the PNIDs, and so on and so forth. And everybody, every worker walks with this. Every work, or not to say every worker, but everybody else has easy access to this sort of technology. So how can we make technologies like this connect with the industrial world, right? And maybe on the face of the mine where they're mucking and so on and so forth, they don't have access, they don't have their cell phones with it. But on the rescue area, in the lunch area, they have. So if they have a problem, they just go ahead and grab their stuff, as long as it's safe to do so, and point their cell phone or their tablet or whatever device they have, and they can aggregate all the information. And people from the top of the mine or somebody else in Toronto is actually seeing what's going on real time and helping that person walk through the problem and resolve the problem right away. Right? This is like small things, but it can make huge impact of operations, work satisfaction, playful, because now the worker has some sort of like a sense of accomplishment that he's actually helping the company and so on and so forth, and things are moving a little bit better.
I think you're both absolutely right that the change, even though it's drastic, it is also a gradient one and a gradual one. So it's continuous. When you couldn't imagine a digital twin being a reality, now you have it more accessible to everyone. So I am fascinated by the topic that you are going to be presented about, you two, on the digital mind becomes reality. And I'm sure that the listeners of the podcast, both as well as the participants at the summit who saw the agenda, are excited about hearing your insights and input into the subject. So the only thing I'd like to add is that we invite everyone who hasn't registered for the second edition of the Mining 4.0 Summit to do so, to be able to get into the discussions with Tiago, Bernardo, and a lot of other industry leaders and the speakers at the event. I'll just remind quickly that the summit will be held in Toronto, Canada on the 30th and 31st of March. We look forward to seeing you, and I thank you very much for joining us today and at the summit. Pleasure.
Thank you very much, Olga, and thanks, Tiago, also for sharing the stage with me today. I'm looking forward to share the stage with you again in person in Canada in a few weeks' time. and as well as with all the participants from this interesting event. And I'm already looking forward for interesting discussions.
Likewise, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Look forward to it.